Okay, I think I'm all set. Let me know if you can see and hear me, please. Give me a thumbs up. I had an issue with this yesterday and I thought it was all solved, only to find out just as soon as I went live. Okay, so if you could please give me a thumbs up. Oh, okay. Bobby said you can hear and see me fine. Okay, great. I'm so sorry. I was having an issue with YouTube yesterday going live. So, and then just today it said there was something else going on. But anyway, okay, we're here. So, happy Serger Savvy Tuesday. I'm very excited to be here because I'm going to show you a stitch that has always been available. And I had, right before I came live, I had an idea too to show you a decorative stitch. So I think I'll put that in a tip clip for you. So hi Sue, hi Doreen, Diane. Okay, great. Oh, yay. Woo. Anyway, I'm not the techiest person on earth, so when something goes wrong, it's an issue for me. But anyway, okay, I'm starting to feel much smarter now that I got it figured out. But anyway, today we are going to look at the combo stitch. And this is a stitch that if you look at woven garments that are ready to wear that you purchased in a store, you will often see this stitch used. And if you look at the inside seam, the inner leg seam, even on jeans, you'll see this stitch used. Usually the outer seam that's on the outside of the thigh with jeans is more of a flat fell seam. But the inside seam is done with this combo stitch. Now, in the description for today, I mentioned that if you have a combo machine that has both overlock and cover chain stitch capability, you can do this all in one step. But if you have two machines that are dedicated, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, you can still do this stitch. But before we get started, I want to do my usual housekeeping ahead of time. Again, I am a Bernina ambassador. I do not work for Bernina, and I do not receive any commission on sales of machines or software. However, if you are in the market for either a new machine, and I'm going to talk a bit about the new L6 series that's coming out, or new software, you are eligible to get an ambassador rebate coupon. You need to ask me for this. Send me an email with your mailing address prior to making the purchase. It is not retroactive on previous purchases. If you bought a new machine last week or a new software, you can't use that. And that's also for Burnett machines as well. So, but I love giving those out. I love saving people $100. That is in the US only. And so just send that to me, and that $100 rebate, you can spend $100 on more fabric or thread or needles, whatever you need. It's great. It's great to save money. I'm very big on that. So with that, and what else did I want to tell you about? I wanted to mention some upcoming events. A month from today, I will be at the Decorative Stitch Camp in Clinton Township, Michigan. That is going to take place September 11th and 12th. That's going to be a great event. Sarah Gallegos owns that store. Great, really fun to work with and wonderful. So if you're in the Clinton Township area of Michigan, I would love to see you. Last month, I mentioned during Serger Savvy, that particular day in July was the day that registration opened for the Houston Quilt Festival. I know all of my classes are currently sold out. So, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to get on a wait list because people's lives change. They sometimes have something come up that's unexpected and they thought they could go and they can't all of a sudden or whatever. So it doesn't hurt to get on a wait list for that. And so that'll be coming up in November. But before that, I will be returning to Cedar Rapids, Iowa to Stitch Summit at Inspire to Sew. Fantastic store. They did their first event last year, and I was part of that. It was wonderful. It was just so much fun. Great customers, wonderful staff, and all of that. So that was really kind of fun, or a lot of fun, I should say. Also, coming up in a couple of weeks, August 22nd, I am doing a class on Zoom about differential feed. We'll really dive deep into it and talk about how to use it. Even if it's not for a decorative purpose, even if it's just to prevent stretching on something or that type of thing, we'll really take a deep look at differential feed. I'll show you a variety of different knit fabrics that we'll be using, that you might use for garment sewing or whatever, and talk about how to adjust the differential feed. How do you know when you've got the differential feed in the right setting for whatever you're doing? So we'll really take a look at that and hopefully give you a very sound understanding of how differential feed works. And it really is one of the best features on a serger, and no sewing machine has it, because you need those 2 sets of feed dogs to do it that a serger has. No sewing machine does. Sewing machines only have the 1 set of feed dogs. Let me see who's in here today. Greetings from Waukesha. Hi, Bobby Yoder. Sue Hudson, great to see you. Diana, Seattle, Brenda, Santa Fe. Let me see, who else did I miss here? I was so wigged out by not being able to get online. I didn't look at everybody right in the beginning. So let me just say hello to everybody who's joining me, and thank you for that. So anyway, so August 22nd, and if you go to the little promo video that I did on YouTube, you'll see the registration link right there. But if you have trouble accessing that, shoot me an email, gail@gailpatrice.com, and I'll send it to you. And in my classes, as always, you will receive the link for the recorded class the day after it ends, and you will own that link forever. So if you can't watch live on August 22nd, that's not a problem. You can get the recorded link the next day, and you're always welcome to email questions to me afterward, and I'll be very happy to answer you on those. And if you have questions about a particular type of fabric, just take a photo and attach that, and I'll take a look at it and try to help you with that. But you always own the link when I do my Zoom classes, and my only question or request is that you not share it with people who have not paid the class, because that's how I earn money. And so it's, I think, going to be a really worthwhile class. And even if you've owned your serger for a number of years, I hear people all the time say, I wish I understood my serger better. Well, this is going to really help you with that. So I hope you join me, and it's going to be fun. And it's from 12 to 3:30, August 22nd, and that's Eastern time. So again, if you can join me live, that's great. And if not, you'll get the recording. And I know sometimes people in Europe or Australia, the time difference doesn't work for them, so they usually watch the recording. So, and you don't really have to have any fabric or anything ready to roll on it unless you want to, and you can just audit the class live and then go and try the different settings at your own pace, and no pressure on you whatsoever. Okay, so let's get to today's class, or Serger Savvy. And so today we're going to look at a combo stitch. And as I said, this is something that you see very frequently on all types of garments. And in fact, I haven't posted it yet, but my niece is in visiting from California, and she had a beautiful pair of tencel cropped, kind of loose pants with an elastic waist. but the seam, the back center seam had, the chain stitch had broken. And so she brought them with me, and so that we could fix them. And I actually had her sitting at the machine so that she could do it. And so that tip clip will be posted pretty soon, and it's really fun. And as a matter of fact, they were a beautiful tencel fabric, and she had never worn them, and she purchased them in a thrift store for, I think she said, about $10. So maybe whoever owned them prior to that, when they tried them on, maybe they were tight or something, and that chain stitch let go and they couldn't fix it. But something like that was kind of a windfall for her. And again, they had never been worn. They were brand new pants, and beautiful fabric, really, really good quality fabric. So we fixed them. And that is the beauty of sewing and serging, is that you can repurpose things and fix something like that, that maybe the previous owner, once it was split, they thought, yuck, I can't do anything with it. So I always encourage people to at least get some of the basics down. And even if you didn't have something where you could do a combo stitch or a chain stitch or whatever, even stitching it on your sewing machine and knowing how to do that ends up being a windfall for things that you can purchase in thrift shops or whatever and fix. Or even if you purchase something full price and snagged a seam, excuse me, you could fix it. So let's take a close look at this, and I'm going to show you 3 different versions of this and show you how they're done. I'm going to go to the table shot. So on my machine, because we have the 3 different chain stitch needle positions, we can create either a 3/8 inch seam allowance, and that's using the right chain needle. The overlock stitch is a 3-thread overlock using my left needle, and I had that stitch width at 6.0, which, as you know, is a very accurate 1/4 inch. And let me just show you that on here. You can see that that is that accurate. Whoops, I guess not with the glare on this. Let me see if I can fix that so it's not so glary. Let me move it down here and see if that's better. Yes. So you can see it's a perfect 1/4 inch. I think it's the light from above that's glaring on it. So here it is, 3/8 inch seam allowance with the right chain needle. The center one is using the center chain needle, and that gives me a 1/2 inch seam allowance from chain stitch to the raw edge. Then if I had my left chain needle in, I would have an exact 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So let me just measure that for you. You can see that's exactly 5/8 of an inch. This is exactly a 1/2 inch. And let me move this down so that it's out of the glare of that light. And here's your 3/8 inch seam allowance. So all 3 of those will work very well. I believe on my niece's pants, let me go back to me, I think we used the right chain needle. I'd have to go back to the video to take a look at that. And it matched up exactly with the way the manufacturer had done that combo stitch. So again, if you have a combo machine, you can do that. The setup is probably going to be very similar to what I have on my L890. But if you're not sure of how to set up your machine for that, I know if you have a Triumph, you have an Ovation, any of the combo machines, any brand, you can do this stitch on it. Just consult your owner's manual, and if you have need some help with setting it up, shoot me an email and I'll be glad to do that. But let's go over and take a look at the screen. Kimmy's saying she can't wait for the Zoom class. I know, I always look forward to those. I haven't done one all summer. The last one I think I did was in April. I've had kind of a busy summer, but I was at home. I didn't do any traveling. I think I told you I was waiting for my husband to get his knee replacement done, and then he had some back issues. But hopefully tomorrow that's going to be solved. But anyway, but I did get a lot of stuff done in my house. I will say, I got the outside of the house painted and power washed. The deck was power washed and restained. The family room, the breakfast room, our bedroom, the powder room, the half bath off of the mud room was all painted. We've got a few more things to do, but at least I made good use of my time, even though I wasn't playing Nancy Nurse and helping my husband with the knee replacement. We got a lot of other stuff done. So it wasn't an entirely lost cause for the summer. And it was kind of nice just to be home and be able to be here when the painters and everybody were here. I know I had gotten last year our one of the other bathrooms painted, and I picked out the paint color, and I was away at an event when the painters came, and I was a little bit nervous when I came home because my husband had said to me on the phone when I was still away, he said, oh, the painters came and the bathroom was all painted. And I said, well, how's it looking? He said, oh, it looks great. But, sometimes it's not exactly what you want when you see it. But so I came home and I flipped on the light and I loved it. So it worked out fine. But anyway, I was home to supervise and make sure everything looked good. And actually the half bath that we had painted, I had picked out this color that was kind of a curry color, and they ended up having to put 4 coats on, and it kind of made it a little more orange than I had in mind. But I said, well, I'm going to leave it alone. I said I might want to change the color a little bit, but now I really like it. I think my eye just had to kind of get adjusted to it, but that's neither here nor there for all of you. So I just thought I'd throw that in for a little information. But let's get over to the machine and take a look at how I have this set up. So I'm going to go to my screen camera, and you can see this is stitch number 17, which is a 3-thread overlock, and that LN means the left needle plus a chain stitch for the right chain needle. And that is going to give me that 3/8 seam allowance that you saw on this stitch. And this is the same one that I used on my niece's pants, or actually that she used on her own pants, because I had her stitch it. And that matched exactly with what the manufacturer had done previously. So I wanted to make sure it matched up perfectly, because they fit her well and didn't need to be taken in or let out or anything else. So let's go back to the screen and see what else. So we have a 3-thread overlock with the left chain needle. I have my stitch width on 6.0 for that 1/4 inch wide overlock stitch. Now you see all 5 blocks are numbered, and you don't see that too often when or at all usually when I'm working on different stitches. Usually one of the blocks is blank. This is my chain needle. The yellow is the chain needle tension. The green is my left overlock needle tension. These are all auto set, and I did not have to change them at all. All I had to do was go in, select stitch 17, and I'll show you how I do that. And it auto set all of these, and it was fine. The blue block is my upper looper tension. The red block is the lower looper tension, and the lavender purpley one is my chain looper. So let me just go over and show you how I change that. So I'll go up here to the stitch selector. I'll go into my combo stitches and just show you. I selected stitch 17. Stitch 18, the only difference between 17 and 18 is that 18 is using the right overlock needle. You have a narrower overlock stitch, but you still have that chain stitch. And so there's a little bit more space between the chain stitching and the overlock stitching, but that's the only difference. Number 19 is using, let me just see what that is. Let's go through these. 17 is the one I'm using right now. that's, you see it auto set everything. I didn't have to fuss around with anything for this. Everything is set up for me. My stitch length is 3.0. Because I'm working on a woven fabric, I'm leaving my differential feed on 1. So let's go to stitch 18 and see what it tells me. Okay, so that is your 3-thread overlock. The RN is right needle. That's the only difference, plus the chain stitch with the right chain needle. So really the only thing I would be moving is that overlock needle. And let's go to the next stitch in the combo folder. Okay, that is a 2-thread overlock stitch. That is basically a wrap stitch. And you can see that the blue block is blank. And that would be the upper looper. That stitch does not have any thread in the upper looper. So you would hook in your upper looper converter, or Baby Lock calls it a subsidiary looper. And you've seen me do that. Again, it auto set all of the tensions on that for stitch number 19. So then, and you can change if you want a longer stitch. If you needed to change your differential feed, you certainly can do that. That's not a problem at all. And you can do needle up or needle down. So whichever one works for you is fine. Let's go back, and that's stitch number 19. Let's go to stitch number 20 and see what that is. Okay, again, that is a 2-thread overlock with your right needle and chain stitch. So that's just a little bit narrower wrap stitch on that. And again, you see that that upper looper block is blank because you've hooked in your upper looper, a converter or a subsidiary looper. Let me go back to me for a second. Josephine is saying, would I recommend for a seam with a lot of use, like, oh, so basically kind of a seam that's stretched, would the chain stitch be long enough? That's exactly what was done on my niece's pants, and you will see it frequently on pants that are woven. Yes, the chain probably would be strong enough, but the thing that's nice about that combo stitch is, and this was the situation with the pants when my niece bought them, is that that chain stitch broke. I don't know whether whoever owned the pants originally might have been they might have been too snug on her, or what the deal was. But anyway, the chain stitch broke. But typically, yes, the chain stitch would be strong enough for those. That's why you do see it on a lot of woven ready-to-wear garments. So, and I know a lot of home sewists who only sew for themselves. They don't do it as a business. And when they're doing garment sewing, that is the stitch that they use on woven fabric. So, yes, it should be strong enough. But again, I don't know if you were doing something that had a really super snug fit. Maybe you might want to shorten that stitch a little bit more to give it a little more stretch and give. You might want to shorten from the default 3.0, maybe go down, and you'd have to test it, to maybe 2.5, and that would give you a little more give on the stitch itself. So that would help the cause a lot. So I want to get down to the needle area. Does anyone else have a question while I'm looking in the chat? I see Cindy said good morning from Odessa, Texas. Good morning to you, Cindy. Let's see. Okay, I think that's good. I don't see any more questions there. North Carolina, yay. Alrighty, so let's go to the presser foot and take a look. And I was trying to see a good angle to show you the needle position. So I may have to move my camera around. So if that makes you a little bit dizzy, then maybe you might want to look away. But anyway, okay, you can kind of see the forward needle is my chain needle, and the needle that is in that recessed position is my left overlock needle. And I'm going to see, let me see if I can move this camera a little bit so that you can see that angle a little bit more. There you see the two needles. So this forward one right here is my right chain needle. This one in back of it is the overlock needle. So let me bring this back. And you can see I've already stitched off. Actually, I never changed the thread from when I was helping my niece with her pants. They were kind of a gold tencel fabric. Okay, I think that's good. Oh, hi, Kim. Good. I'm glad you came in. Great. Okay, so let's see. We are all set up for that. So let's review one more time on that. On the overlock side, I am set up for a 3-thread wide overlock. I have my left overlock needle in, and they're all threaded with Serger cone thread. Actually, I think I had one. I didn't have enough of this color, so I just have one all-purpose thread in there also. But my needle, upper looper, and lower looper are all threaded up. And my stitch width for the overlock side of the stitch is 6.0, which gives me a 1/4 inch stitch. And then my right chain needle is in. That also is threaded with Serger cone thread, and my chain looper is as well. So we're using the whole enchilada on this one. And again, if you have the combo machine, you can do this all in one pass. But if you have 2 different dedicated machines, you can still do this, but it's just a 2-step process. You would do the overlock first, then do the chain stitch after that on the separate machine. So you're not out of the ball game if you have 2 dedicated machines, not at all. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go and let's see how this stitches up. And it's pretty easy to set up. And if you're not sure, again, on the 890, you have that guided mode that will help you do that. But I think you'll get the hang of it pretty easily. So let's go to that. And I think this is going to be bright enough, but we'll show you. And I just dropped a couple of my fabrics. Okay. No problem at all. Okay, so the other thing that you want to check, and let me just go back to my face. I should have mentioned this prior to starting with that. The place that you want to be exact on is where you position your chain needle. So what you're going to do is you're going to check the seam allowance on your pattern, and say if it's a 5/8 seam allowance, then you're probably going to just trim off about a 1/4 inch of the fabric with the right chain needle in. That will give you that 3/8 inch finished seam allowance. So you're going to trim off about a 1/4 inch of that. But it's where you place your chain needle positioned in relation to the raw edge. So I've got my little ruler here, and I hope I can get this and show it to you so that it's nice and clear for you. I'm having some stuff done upstairs. I hope that's not, you can't hear it, but if you can, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's go to the presser foot. I think I'll brighten this up just a smidge. Let me see if I can. I think that's a little bit better. All right, so this is going to be the one that has a finished 3/8 width. Doreen saying, is this combo stitch recommended for side seams on a long dress? Absolutely, you can do that. Again, if you go into a store and look at a lot of garments that are woven, you'll see this all over the garment, on the side seams, the inner, underarm seam on sleeves. You'll see it on skirt, side seams, whatever, pants. Pants like jeans and stuff like that, you'll see it only on that inner thigh seam. But yes, you could definitely do that on that. Okay, so let's go back to here. All right, so here is my chain needle. So if I want to create a 5/8 inch seam, I'm going to eyeball it at first, but I think I'm probably pretty close. You can see that the knife is going to trim off about a 1/4 inch. So with that 5/8 inch seam, when this is finished stitching at 3/8 of an inch, I'll have created that 5/8 inch seam allowance accurately. So let's get going and take a look. And let me bring this up just a little bit more so that you can really see that. I think that's a little bit better. Let me just make sure it's focused. Okay, good. All right, so you can see the chain in back of here. Here's my overlock chain. Here's my chain needle chain. So you can see the two separate parts of the stitch. That's Bernina Burke. And I can chain right off on this. If you needed to lock your chain stitch, you could certainly do that prior to it. But look how nice that is. It's really perfect. And it should match the other, the original one that I showed you under the close-up camera. Let's just take a look just to be sure. Okay. So here's the stitch that I just did that gives me that finished 3/8. Here is the needle side. Here is the chain looper side. So you're seeing both sides. And I think I need to fix my tension just a little bit on that. I think, although, okay. All right, so there it is. There's your 3/8 of a seam allowance finished. But I trimmed off about a 1/4 inch. So it started off as a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so let's go back. Doreen, you're saying instead of a 4-thread security stitch. Either one you can do. Andy. Oh, hi, Andy. How are you? The 4-thread overlock, that trims off any excess that you have for seam allowance. But on this one, let me just go back and show you. That is a great point to make, especially for garment sewing. Let's go back here for a second. Okay, so this gives me an extra 1/8 of an inch on that seam allowance. So say I tried something on, of course, typically you would probably baste in, and I'll talk about that for a minute. If you're fitting a garment, you would baste in or pin in to check the fit before you do your final stitching. But if, say, you had gained a couple of pounds since you made the garment and you needed that little scooch of extra room, you have it right here. And here it is with that 5/8 inch seam allowance. Look how much extra you have to play with for that seam allowance. That could give you all that extra room. And you could take that out and go over this, say, with a 4-thread overlock, or leave it just with the 3-thread overlock if it's something that's not, especially a knit, but even with a woven, that would give you, let's measure in between. Where did my ruler go? Oh, here it is. Okay. Let's measure in between. So this would give you 1, to 3/8 of an inch more right in between here. So when you let that out, that would give you 3/4 of an inch on that one seam to play with for extra room. So that's a great point, Andy. Thank you. Just joined first live. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for joining, Sharita. Okay, yeah. So that definitely does give you room. And one thing that I want to mention too, and years ago I did a tip clip about this, and I'll probably redo it because it is well worth knowing about. Nobody would ever think of using their serger for fitting on garments when they're trying things on and just getting exactly the right fit through the body, if you're making pants or a top or dress, whatever. If you do the stitching with a chain stitch alone, not an overlock, not the combo stitch that we're talking about today, but if you did that with a chain stitch, it is super, super easy to remove that stitching. And so you don't need your seam ripper. Don't lock the stitch at the bottom. Just chain off with the chain stitch if you're doing some fitting. Don't lock the stitch. Pull from last stitch back to the first stitch. You do not need your seam ripper, and you are never stressing the fabric. And particularly if you are doing something with a very dressy, say like a silk chiffon or charmeuse or something like that, how many times, even on sturdy fabrics, have you used your seam ripper and accidentally either snagged and pulled a thread in the fabric or accidentally poked a hole in it? I've done it. I think we've all done it probably one time or another on any kind of a project. But with that chain stitch, let's actually demonstrate that because I think it's kind of worthwhile to see. Because that's a great point. It does give you that room. But if you use that chain stitch for fitting, it is a huge time saver for pulling out stitches. You know how nice it is to be pulling out that straight stitch on your sewing machine. Even a long basting stitch takes time. But you're saving the fabric and preventing any kind of snagging or pulling. So let me just make sure I figure out which was the end of this. I tend to think this end was the last stitch. Yes. Okay. So let me just show you that. I'm going to go to that camera again. Okay. So if I want to pull that out, when this was stitched, this is the way the fabric was oriented. Okay. And I know that because the needle straight stitch is showing on this side. So then I could go to the last stitch, which is up here, pull out that chain stitch. Look at this. Super fast. Let me get the whole thing up here. Super fast and easy. Pull out the needle side. Let me just grab it. Just like that. Then look, there's your extra room, and you can see this is a loosely woven linen. I actually, believe it or not, I used this for a shade in one of the bathrooms last year, and I had a little bit left over. Let's see how much extra that gives us. If I had pressed this open, there's your well, probably if I pull this really flat, the way it would go if it was pressed, it's just about 3/4 of an inch extra. But you can see how that chain stitch is really a fantastic one to think about if you like garment sewing and fitting. And it just makes it so easy. Oh, Kim is asking about how to lock the stitch. Okay, I can show you that. Yeah, oh, Millie said she never thought of that. Yes, absolutely. I am a very big person for using my chain stitch if I'm making a garment and, you know, kind of trying it on and testing it, and excellent to use. So that is that one. But let's go over and take a look and see how easy it is to switch to another stitch, and I don't know whether this is quite kosher or not, but all I basically do to go from the right needle to the center to the left, I just change the needle position. I don't change anything else on the machine, and guess what? It still comes out fine. So let's take a look at that, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so right now I'm going to open this up, grab my screwdriver. My chain needle is the only one that I'm going to move. It's in the right chain needle position right now. I'm going to take it, move it over to the center needle position, snug up that screw, snug up this one as well. I'm going to move the thread from that right guide position into the middle one, the center one. So that's good. All right, so now we're going to have that 1/2 inch needle position. Oh, I see what I did. You know what? I know why that tension looked like it was off. Let me just show you, because it was perfect before. I forgot to switch my screen back to stitch number 17. That's why that tension looked off. There's nothing wrong with the machine. Operator error. So I got distracted and didn't go back to 17. So let's go back to 17, and everything should look perfect again. When I first showed that one, the tension looked like it was off. Mea culpa, my fault. So that's what the problem was with that. All right, so let's try this. This will give me that 1/2 inch seam allowance when I measure from the chain stitch to the raw edge, okay? So if my pattern asked for a 1/2 inch seam allowance, would I cut off any of my fabric? No, I might just skim off a few of the whiskers, the little threads on the edge of the fabric itself. You can see it's a little bit, I can put it right against the black, and you can see I'll trim off and neaten that up, but I'm going to try not to trim off any. Bev says, but you are using the center needle now. Yes, the center needle. Let's go back to my sample. Hang on. Okay, so here is my sample using the center needle. And I'm going to put that over there so it doesn't distract us. And actually, let me go this way so it's oriented correctly for you. And we're looking at the back side. You're looking at the chain looper. Here's your exact 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to let the edge of the fabric just kiss the knife as it goes by, just to trim off any of the little threads and get rid of those. But I don't want to trim off any excess fabric itself. I suppose if you trimmed off one thread or something like that, would it make a big difference? Probably not. So let's do that. All right, so I haven't done anything to the overlock side of this stitch. The only thing I've done is move the chain needle from the right needle to the center position. So I'm giving myself 1/8 of an inch more seam allowance. I'm going to put this in, and just if you're not too sure where your knife is, here it is right here. This is my knife, and the edge of the fabric is going to just kiss the knife and get cleaned up to get those little threads off. And I do have my knee lift in today. So and I'm putting that right against the edge of the knife just to clean it up. So let's take a look. Okay, so you can see the edge is nice and clean and neat looking. Let me get these things out of the way and do the close-up of this. Okay, here's the one that I just stitched. Here's my starting chain for the overlock stitch. Let me just show you those two because that makes it very easy. Here's my chain stitch. Here's my overlock stitch thread chain. Okay, and let's measure that. Exactly a 1/2 inch. So that's with my center chain needle. So that is the key thing to keep in mind is what is my seam allowance and where do I have to put my chain needle to be accurate with that. Now, so are there any questions about, Bev is saying still stitch 17. Okay, this is what I was talking about, whether I wasn't sure whether it's really kosher or not. But honestly, with this machine, I tested this out yesterday just to see if I needed to adjust anything. I didn't touch a thing. I left it on stitch 17 because the overlock side stayed the same. The only thing I did was move the needle. I didn't change the thread position, nothing. And that shows you how easy it is to move things around on the machine with minimal fiddling around. So the only thing I did, let me just show you my screen just to show you I'm not kidding. Still on stitch 17. And before, when that tension didn't look right, I forgot to change it from that 2-thread stitch back to 17. That was my fault. There was nothing wrong with the machine at all. Operator error. And again, a lot of times people think just because you do classes and teach all over the place, you never make a mistake. Guess what? We do. Especially when we're on camera live, and that's when it always happens. So anyway, okay, so that is the center position. So let's go back to the machine and move the chain needle to the left position. And that's going to give me that accurate 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So go to that. Okay. And grab my screwdriver. So you can see it's in the center needle position. Maybe if I move this, although it'll kind of be in my way, I won't be able to see where the needle is if I move the camera. So you can see I'm just loosening the screw. I am going to move it over to that left chain position. Put the needle all the way up. Again, you always want to look in those little windows and make sure the needle is all the way up to the top of the window so it's in the correct position. I'm going to put my screwdriver away. And then I like to make sure that my needle thread is coming down in straight over. So I'm going to move that into that left thread guide position right up here. Okay, again, I didn't touch the screen. I didn't change the stitch 1 iota. All I did was change the needle. So it's really fast and easy depending on what you want to do. And if you have something, using that left chain needle that gives you the widest seam allowance is not a bad idea to use for garment sewing, especially if you've got something that's fitted, if your weight tends to fluctuate a little bit, which mine does. Sometimes I go up, sometimes I go down. If you needed that little scooch of room to let out, you've got more with that left chain needle position. You've got that 5/8 inch seam allowance, and we'll look, you saw me take it out. When I took that out, the chain stitch out and just had the 3-thread overlock stitch in, that gave me almost 3/4 of an inch more room. And if you did that on one side seam and the other side seam, that would give you that 1.5 inches of extra room, which should probably be enough. Fingers crossed after the holidays, naturally. Bev is saying, would that work on the Triumph? Absolutely. The Triumph is a combo machine. Yes, absolutely. You can do this, all three of these stitches on your Triumph, and it would be the exact same setup. Just if there are any differences at all on that, like on the Triumph, you cannot adjust your tension in overlock mode, but you can adjust the cover chain stitch tension. So just look at your owner's manual, Bev, and see what they recommend for the setting. I would start with probably a 3.0 stitch length. But if you're doing something lighter weight, run a test. And again, I'm like the broken record of talking about making samples. But run a test first and see what works, and make sure that the tension looks good on that chain stitch. But on the Triumph, absolutely, you can do that. You can do all three positions on that because you've got three needle positions on the Ovation, on the Triumph. And I can never remember the name of the machine that's a little bit smaller in their lineup, but you have that. But any other brand also, if you have a combo machine for a Janome, a Juki, Viking, any of those, if you've got a combo machine, if you've got those three needle positions, you can do all three of those. But even if you only had two chain needle positions, you could probably do that with the right chain needle for the 3/8 inch seam allowance, and that center needle, which would probably, on a 2 needle chain stitch, you would probably be able to, it would probably come out to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so let's test this out one more time, and this will give me that widest seam allowance. Let me find my little fabric sample and go back to the presser foot. Okay, so you can see, let me move this over. I thought I had it in there. Okay, so now you can see the most space between the two needles. So that's going to give me that exact 5/8 inch seam allowance. If I'm working on a garment pattern, sometimes from the Big Four company, I think they mostly still use a 5/8 seam allowance. I'm just going to let the knife skim off the whiskers on the raw edge and keep that needle. I'm just going to line this up. Let me get it right in there. So it's the fabric edge, raw edge, is just going to kiss the knife as it goes by, and it's going to clean up those little threads on the edge for me. Here we go. Okay, so let's take a look at this under the close-up camera. Okay, and I keep moving my, here's my needle thread, here's my chain looper thread. I think that's a little bit bolder to see on camera, so let's measure it from this side. Here is that exact 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so, and I just let the knife clean up that raw edge, and it's perfect. So, questions? Anyone have any questions? And Kim, you were asking about how to lock the chain stitch. Okay, so I'll show you that. Do I have my locking fork here? Yes, I do. Okay, so I will do that. Let me, oh, I do have one more piece of fabric. I must have known you were going to ask that. Okay, all right, so how do I lock the chain stitch? If I know my stitch is ready to roll, I've got my fitting all set, everything is right. And while I'm saying this about fitting, this is a great stitch too if you're working on something that like say an upholstery fabric for slip covers, or doing something with outdoor furniture, even indoor furniture, and you want that really strong seam with these, you can use this. This is not just strictly for garment sewers. You can use this stitch for all sorts of projects if you wish. Anything where you want a nice strong seam, if it's going to take some stress and wear and tear, the 5 threads will give you that nice strong stitch. So okay, so Kim, you're asking, how do I lock the chain stitch? Now you have to remember, I do not need to lock the overlock stitch. You never have to lock that, really. I just either tie off the ends or tuck in the thread tails on something like that. But let's look at how to lock the chain stitch. So let's go back here. Okay, I'm just going to leave it set up the way it is. I have a longer piece of fabric. I don't think we need to stitch the whole thing. Let me just start part way in, because I know we're kind of getting to the end here, or we are toward the end. And I want to mention also, I'm just going to take another minute of your time. Okay, so let's just stitch this. Okay. And you can see that the chain needle stitches just a little bit ahead of where the overlock stitch is. So I'm going to stop there because that is still in there. I'm going to pull just the chain needle forward, Kim. I have my locking fork. You can purchase those on my website if you wish to, but the Bernina also comes with their own locking fork. We are going to cut that. And what I want you to do, I'm pulling this out, watch this thread disappear to the other side. Do you see that? So, and the chain looper thread is what did that. That chain looper thread is still attached. Now, that stitch is locked. And you can, it doesn't really look one iota different up close. Let me go back to that camera. I stopped right before the end of it, pulled that needle thread forward, cut that, let the chain looper thread pull it to the wrong side, and it's locked. Like when I go, if I go to pull this the way I did before, it won't pull out. That chain looper thread locked that in. So let me go back to me. Okay, good. Oh, Linda, you're checking in late. Okay, you'll catch the replay. Well, thanks for joining anyway. The other thing I want to mention, I know we're just a little bit past the hour, is that keep your eye out. I am going to be doing an unboxing of the brand new L620 dedicated cover stitch machine. I also have the 660. I haven't done that yet. That is the brand new dedicated overlock machine. And let me tell you, I wasn't sure how I was going to like either machine. The cover stitch machine, the L620, phenomenal. There is so much stuff built into a slightly more compact machine. I actually measured it. I think it's about 13¼ inches across, or 13¾ including where the hand wheel and stitch length and differential feed dials are on the right side of that machine. And it's about, I think, 11¼ inches deep. Absolutely amazing. And one of the coolest things that I noticed on it is the air threading. You can barely hear it. It's phenomenal. So, and the stitch quality is superb. It is a Bernina quality stitch. It is beautiful. So keep your eye out. I have to edit that video, and it will be up soon on that. And then I'll be working on the 660 video as well. But are there any questions about what we did today? I'll be very happy to answer them. I've got a few extra minutes. But again, you will... this is being recorded to my channel, so if you didn't catch the whole thing or you have questions about it, definitely go back and watch the replay. But thank you all very much. I hope I see a lot of you August 22nd in my Zoom class on differential feed. I'm excited about that. Oh, you're welcome. Said always informative. That's great. Good. I'm glad I could help. But I hope I do see you on there, and I will catch you in September with another new Serger Savvy. So happy sewing and serging. Enjoy those last few weeks of August. I cannot believe we're heading into the end of the month, and I'm starting to see a lot of acorns falling, so that's telling me that fall is right around the corner in Connecticut. But thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you again soon. Happy sewing and serging.